before we were rudely interrupted by a little yellow and black bitey thing. So at the Paris conference, like 5 people managed to stop a major part of their agenda because this.
You mean Paris?
The Berlin Declaration, to stopping that in its tracks. They've been trying to get this to have some sort of legal mandate ever since they've started doing it, and just a few people managed to stop it dead. And yes, they're true.
Well, when you say stop it dead,
postpone.
What we did was create a bump in the road for them.
Yeah.
Because they're still pushing.
Yeah. And because I often get asked, well, what can I do? You know, there's just little me against these powerful organizations and corporations and governments, and you know, what can one person do? And the answer is quite a lot, really.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you. I mean, obviously, we only have we have to explore what the possibilities are. You know, we're still learning as we go.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the not another one, was it?
Mm.
Maybe we're near a wasp's nest. Some of the methods we're learning as we go along. The most important thing that we all need to do is to do as much research as possible for ourselves to understand what's happening. We can take a lot of cues from previous people's work and find starter points, but it's essential that everybody develops the habit to find out information for themselves.
Exactly.
So we can empower ourselves by understanding what's actually happening. We can be vigilant because we can try to develop an intuition to avoid misinformation and disinformation, which is rife. So you do have to become vigilant. And I would say the method to do that is to try to stick to verifiable information, i.e. looking at scientific papers or documents, military documents, information, open source information from the establishment itself. And there is ample information, historical information, contemporary studies,
papers, patents.
Yeah, so you can become aware. I mean, with patents, you do have to be a little bit careful because you need to look at who's citing the patents, who are the references, and who is actually taking it out. Like, for example, the United States Navy have a patent for making cumulus clouds.
The Chemtrails generator. From
No, this is a separate one actually.
Yeah.
But for example, if you some patents, they might be how to walk through a wall or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful about. You have to cherry pick what seems relevant and who are the sources.
Yeah.
But they are useful pieces of the puzzle. So that's quite an important area. First of all, is to empower yourself with knowledge from your own endeavour. Secondly, is to become active. If you have developed your own private archive of information because you've done some research, you can then assemble together flyers, hand those out to people. You can share information and links to information you feel are important because you want to encourage other people to start to become interested in research information for themselves.
And don't limit yourself to social media.
Pardon?
Don't limit yourself to online.
Oh no, I mean social media plays a very important part these days because you can connect with so many people, but it's also can be a bit of a trap because it can be time consuming and you can go around in circles. So it has some good uses and it's certainly helped us. But you need to take your activism out into the streets. Go to scientific fairs, go to universities, go to shopping malls, go anywhere really where there's going to be people or members from the establishment. There's nothing wrong with going to local governments and complaining about what's going on and voicing your non-consent to what's happening or what you perceive to be happening or what they're talking about will be happening. You have to make it clear that what is happening, or what may be happening, or what they're talking about happening is not acceptable.
Yeah.
So your public representatives, your local government, your environmental protection agencies, be it DEFRA or whatever is applicable to where you live, you need to say to them, we believe this is going on now. They may deny it because there's a line of denial. Don't be put off by that. Because of course they're going to deny it because it's contentious.
And
it's also currently illegal.
Yeah.
There are lots of laws in place, and the NMOD Treaty for one, and other weather modification laws, especially in the US, there's many.
Yeah.
So what's going on is illegal. So the establishment will be groomed and trained to deny it. But you have to learn to ignore that and expect that's what they're going to say. That doesn't mean that you can't go in and say, listen, I do not consent to this. I believe it's happening now. You may well deny it, but they are talking about doing it and we don't want it. And that's an important process because this all works on consent. So you have to, that's an effective form of helping outside of social media to get the message through to the establishment that the people do not want this. So I'd highly recommend doing that. Another thing you've done, which I think is very, very interesting, is write your own paper.
Easily done.
Tell us about that. What have you written?
Well, that was quite simple because the research about this has been going on for so long, and what they keep talking about in public is sulfates, but quietly in their own papers and in conferences where they don't think the public are watching, they'll say, well, actually, we're going to use aluminum and barium nanoparticulate substances. And those are known toxins. And so all I did was I wrote a paper showing the toxicity of first of all, showing that they actually proposed it, and then showing how clearly toxic it is. And then with some statistics publicly available from the CDC showing the increases in the diseases related to what would happen if you put these substances in the environment, such as Alzheimer's and respiratory failure. And what I did, I was still writing my paper half an hour before I got picked up to come to the airport to come here, and just before coming to Paris, I stayed in London for a little bit. I just printed out 1,000 copies, and I was expecting, because normally when I'm out flyering in public, you'll get maybe you'd be lucky to get 1 in 10 people actually take one.
But that's not bad. 1 in 10.
Well, that's good.
If 1 in 10 people knew what was happening, you'd be approaching critical mass.
I know, but at this conference, it was like 98% of people were taking them, and we're like, wow. And they were scientists, and they were used to reading the scientific papers, and they were checking the references, and they were like, wow, how come no one else is talking about this? So that, and there was about 2,000.
Sorry, can I just interrupt you? Are you a scientist?
Well, I'm physicist. Well, I did physics at university. Okay. But I don't know. I mean, I'm a photographer. I'm just a guy. I didn't even graduate, because before I finished my physics degree, I decided to become a journalist. And I was a photographer, and I did all kinds of other things. I'm a nobody. I got nothing after my name, And you don't need to have the blessing from some university to be able to find that stuff out for yourself, which is publicly available. It doesn't hurt to understand how scientists communicate, and you can see how they do through their papers, and you just structure your paper the same way as they do, format it the same way, use the references in the same format as them, and just facts, reference, and you're done, and it's easy. So that's what I did. But there's, if you're great at baking cakes, you could do not necessarily a bake sale, but you could just give out cookies to people, and when people are coming up for cookies, you could also be telling them about what's going on. Whatever your skill set is, whatever you're more comfortable with, do that. But do something, because if you expect someone else to do it, it's just not going to happen. It's really not going to happen.
Yeah, the participation is the key, isn't it? We can't rely on other people to do all the effort for us.
No.
Each and every one of us has to sort of take up the baton at some point. Everyone has to.
And also, when you consider the size of the program, I mean, some people debate, whether it's happening or not. But when the Operation Popeye thing with like 8 planes and 6 planes, and you just look up any day when they're laying down heavy trails, and there's like hundreds of them over one little area, and you think, my God, you could extrapolate that over the planet. It's giant. And when you consider the cost of one airplane ticket, then multiply that, it's an astronomical number. I mean, it's pocket change for the people who are behind it, who are, arguably the people who are behind the whole fight, the looting of the planet and so on, who knows. But if they can afford to do that, it's small change for them to hire an army of disinformation agents. And you shouldn't trust, you should listen to your gut, you should do your own research, and if you find someone who's saying a lot of the right things, don't automatically think that everything that they say is okay, because they might draw you in with a certain amount of truth stuff and also feed disinformation. So when you then repeat to someone like, oh yeah, they're spraying us, and there's this and there's that, and the moon's made of cheese, you're going to look silly.
Yeah,
so
you have to cherry pick the information. You have to learn to be vigilant. And
learn to be vigilant.
And also, if people are pushing information, you should take the opportunity to find their sources and verify that information. Mm-hmm. That's why people need to get into the habit of verifying information for themselves, so that they're building up their own personal archive. And some of that information might come from one source, and other bits of information come from another source, but you can't take everything as gospel.
And what I do when I'm putting up a YouTube video and I'm mentioning stuff, in the comments will have links back to source documents, and everyone should get into the habit of
sharing
sourcing everything.
Yeah.
Because if you have a thing and then it gets shared to another site, and then the source becomes Chemtrails are killing us. By the way, that is a group you should watch out for. Chemtrails are killing us. It's a nest of shills. Actually,
shills and trolls.
Yeah, and actually, my collective term for shills is a pucker. That's my. But anyway, that's another thing.
Traitors to humanity is mine.
Yeah, they are, and there's many of them, and it's all they need to do is find someone with zero empathy, and they will find whatever particular skill set they have, and they will employ it to spread uncertainty.
So what do you think is their overall mandate? The shills and trolls.
It's to suppress the truth. That's it. And they can do it by intimidating people who are sharing it, and they'll. The thing is, all the actually, I'll pause it here for a sec. Hang on.